It is the Banner Ravens post-game chat. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Mancano. After the Ravens pull off a 20-10 victory over the LA Chargers, thought I'd take this opportunity to host a live show post-game. Going to try to do this the rest of the season to take your comments, your questions. I know it's a late night here on the East Coast as the Ravens were out in the West Coast taking on the Chargers, but lot to discuss, and I'm sure a lot of fans will potentially lose some sleep over this victory. I'm going to discuss everything that went into this game. Ravens came in hoping to keep hold of that number one seed in the AFC. They did so with a victory in their ninth win of the season, but it really was not perfect. Going up against a Chargers team that came into this game with a 4-6 records, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and the Ravens couldn't quite put them away at several opportunities over the course of this game. They did get a late score from Zay Flowers, his second touchdown of the game, to make it a 2-score victory. The Ravens somewhat escape after a long week coming into LA, and I'm going to break it all down here on the Banner Ravens live chat. Thanks to everybody who's tuning in, and keep those comments, those questions going in our live chat. And of course, I will have a Banner Ravens podcast episode for you at some point, probably in the early morning hours of Monday, along with Jonas Schaefer. So, coming into this game, the Ravens had the chance to pick up their ninth win of the season, to stay atop the AFC with a 9-3 record. And you thought that this game would be a little bit easier than some of the recent tests that they had. Of course, taking on Cleveland, that was a loss at home. They had a chance to beat the Bengals at home. They did so. Joe Burrow knocked out of that game in the second half, so a little bit easier than it ended up coming into that game. And the Ravens had a chance to win their fifth game in their last six contests. And you thought that the offense would have a real chance to show what they could do, especially without Mark Andrews. This is the first game in which Mark Andrews is going to miss. He is on the injured reserve, so it's going to be a long time that he's going to be out. Could potentially come back for this team if they make a deep postseason run. But as of now, this Ravens offense, led by Lamar Jackson, with a brand new wide receiver core coming into this season, is going to have to show what it can do without Mark Andrews. And early on in this game, it looked like they were going to be able to run away with this thing. We saw Isaiah Likely have 4 catches for 40 yards in the first half. He was the Ravens' leading receiver in the first half of this game. Lamar Jackson was targeting a bunch of different receivers like he did. He targeted OBJ 3 times for 3 catches in the first half. OBJ going up against his former team, the team with which, or the stadium, I should say, that he won a Super Bowl. Of course, not playing in the second half of that game, but going up against this LA team, he thought he would have some opportunities. He took advantage of the first half. The offense was rolling. Everything was going well. The defense was phenomenal. And then what have we continued to see from this team down the stretch? When they're given opportunities to put the game away, the offense just cannot seem to score reliably and to salt the game away with key opportunities. In the fourth quarter, they did not score until Zay Flowers had that touchdown with about 90 seconds left. And they allowed the Chargers to come back in a game that, frankly, Los Angeles should not have been, had no business being a part of for most of this game. The offense, first half, phenomenal. Lamar Jackson, first half, he went 12 for 18, 115 yards. He had 25 rushing yards. He had a passing touchdown. He was making phenomenal highlight plays, changing up his arm angle, escaping defenders, escaping the rush, a difficult Chargers rush. The defense overall for LA has not been good this season, but they still do boast some great rush edge players in terms of Khalil Mack. I know Joey Bosa wasn't playing in this game, but they had an opportunity to get after Lamar Jackson, and he was making them pay at a lot of opportunities. He did have a near interception late in this game on a screen to Zay Flowers, but for the most part, he played a pretty clean game, except in the fourth quarter. When it came down to it, they just could not seem to put this game away and to score a last touchdown until that Zay Flowers touchdown. Lamar finished 18 of 32 for 177 yards. He had that one touchdown. He was only sacked twice in this game. And Isaiah Likely ended up finishing this game for the Ravens as their leading receiver. 4 catches, 40 yards. He did not have a catch after halftime. And the same can be said for OBJ. 3 catches, 34 yards. That was the exact amount that he had at halftime. Rashad Bateman, 2 catches, 21 yards. Nelson Aguilar had that one great catch. Should have been called a first down. Instead, they marked him short. Some questionable coaching decisions. I'll get into those as well. But a game in which the Ravens allowed their opponent, a much weaker opponent, to come back in this game. We are live here on YouTube, so keep your comments and your questions going, and I'll try to address as many of them as I can. To me, offensively, this was another big game for Keaton Mitchell. And we saw several weeks ago against Cleveland, Keaton Mitchell had a big touchdown early in that game. And then for whatever reason, offensive coordinator Todd Monken and head coach John Harbaugh went away from the undrafted rookie. And for some reason, he ended up getting only 3 carries in that game. And down the stretch, the offense could not perform. And they were missing a back who had the kind of game-breaking speed that Keaton Mitchell did. That was not the case today. Keaton Mitchell in this game was much better and was given a much bigger opportunity than previously, given. He finished with 9 carries, 64 yards. That's 7.1 yards per carry in this game. Lamar Jackson was the second leading rusher behind him, 11 carries for 39 yards. It's great when Gus Edwards is able to plow forward, especially when it's down near the goal line, inside the 10, inside the 5. He didn't score a touchdown today. He had 8 carries for 26 yards. But to have Keaton Mitchell's game-breaking speed, this is something the offense has not had since J.K. Dobbins left the very first game of the season with that season-ending Achilles injury. So they needed Keaton Mitchell's speed today, and I do think he made a big difference for this team, and especially in the fourth quarter, coming down the stretch, was able to put them in field goal range. Now, Justin Tucker did miss the field goal the first time he's missed a field goal from inside 50 yards all season, but they had an opportunity at least to go up 6 points at the end of the game, in part because of Keaton Mitchell. Defensively, I think this was a phenomenal performance. You saw, I think, a return to form kind of game from their inside linebackers. You saw Patrick Queen be a force in the passing game. You saw Roquan Smith seem to be a whole lot faster. I'm not sure if it was because of the extended time off, the fact that they had a Thursday night game and then a Sunday night game. They had a couple extra days to recuperate. Roquan Smith seemed a lot faster than we have seen him in recent games. And the Ravens have not yet had their bye. I think that all the players on this team will certainly benefit from having a week off. But Roquan Smith seemed to be playing with fresher legs under him than he had in previous games. He was running downhill. He was making key tackles. And Kyle Hamilton was the defensive player of this game for me. I mean, he is in the midst of a breakout second season, probably a Pro Bowl season for the safety, maybe even an all-pro game, or an all-pro season, I should say, from Kyle Hamilton. He finished with 6 tackles, 4 of them solo tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass defended. He is the Swiss Army knife to Mike Macdonald's defense, and he's able to do everything on the field in order to stymie another team's offense. And that was the kind of game that Kyle Hamilton had. He had that great game early in the season, if you recall, against the Colts, where he had 3 first-half sacks. It was another type, coming out game for Kyle Hamilton, I think, today. And he was absolutely phenomenal in the middle of this Ravens defense. Keenan Allen, the Chargers wide receiver, who was already over 1,000 yards on the season for the 6th time in his career, having a great age 31 season, did not have a great game for the Chargers. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that Mike Macdonald was able to scheme things up and keep him under wraps. I mean, 14 catches for 106 yards sounds like a lot, but for the kind of season that Keenan Allen has had, that's not a ridiculous amount. And he was able to Mike McDonald was able to and this defense were able to keep Keenan Allen out of the end zone as well. I think that that was a big factor in this win. You saw great plays from Kyle Van Noy. He had a great tipped pass coming around the edge, stopping what could have been a massive gain for the Chargers at one point in the second half. The linebackers I mentioned were phenomenal. Jadeveon Clowney, one-man wrecking crew. I'm not sure where this defense would be without Jadeveon Clowney. They'd probably still be pretty good, but he has been by far the best edge rusher on this team so far this season. The former number 1 overall pick uh, hit the QB twice. He had 1 sack, which was a forced fumble as well. Potentially at that point in the game seemed like Justin Herbert had been knocked out of the game. He came back in. It looked like the Ravens defense had knocked yet another quarterback out of the game. But Justin Herbert did, in fact, come back. But Jadeveon Clowney with the strip sack, a massive play at that time of the game when the Chargers were charging right down the field, but the Ravens were able to keep them at bay. I am live on YouTube, so please keep your comments and questions in the chat as well as I break down this Ravens 20-10 victory over the LA Chargers. They moved to 9-3 on the season. I do want to discuss the strange coaching decisions in this game because we saw twice in this game the Ravens had an opportunity, and John Harbaugh had the opportunity to challenge a spot that potentially could have given the Ravens a first down. We saw it once in the first half on a third down. Looked like the Ravens picked up the first. John Harbaugh, instead of throwing the challenge flag, opts to go essentially no huddle. And the play call is a direct snap to Gus Edwards, who does not pick up the first down on 4th and inches. Ravens have a turnover on downs. That's kind of a bang play, and it is the Ravens' decision to go no huddle. They're trying to keep the defense guessing and keep them on their heels, but that does not work out. Later in the game, they have another opportunity to challenge, to me, what was a much more obviously wrong spot by the referees in this game. Nelson Aguilar with a great catch over the middle. It looks like he is dragged across the first down line and the line to gain. And instead, he's marked short. Now, it is just second down, so the Ravens have 2 opportunities then to go for it. They do not challenge the spot, and they go for it on third down to try to pick up the first down. Do not get it. They go for it on 4th down to pick up the first down, and they finally get that first down thanks to a Gus Edwards run up the middle. But it was awfully close to them not picking up both of those first downs that, frankly, John Harbaugh would have been well within his rights to challenge. The second one, to me, I thought the Ravens coaching staff should have slowed things down, and instead of going no huddle on third down, should have allowed the coaches, whoever is watching up in the box, to tell John Harbaugh to throw that challenge flag in that time. It worked out. They were able to pick up the first down. No harm, no foul. But that was a very questionable decision from John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, and the coaching staff. There was another 2 plays I do want to discuss that were curious by this coaching staff. John Harbaugh used a challenge on a backwards pass by Keenan Allen. It was kind of a funky play by the Chargers. They're driving. They're trying to pick up a 3rd and 17. Keenan Allen catches the pass over the middle. We've seen this. The Lions, I believe, ran this a couple years ago. And he has a backwards pass to another wide receiver who catches the ball, runs it up the sideline, and picks up the first down. It was very clearly, to me, watching live, a backwards pass. It was not an illegal forward pass at the time. John Harbaugh challenges the play, doesn't challenge the spot, which was awfully close to the first down. Instead, challenges that it was, in fact, a backwards pass, which it very clearly was. He loses the challenge pretty easily and decisively. And that could have been a major issue for the Ravens as the game was coming down to the wire. Had the Chargers, down 13-10, come down the field and scored a go-ahead touchdown, the Ravens would have been down to just 1 timeout, in part because of that missed challenge, and would have had just 1 chance to stop the clock as they were preparing to come down the field and either tie the game or go ahead. Again, it worked out. No harm, no foul. The defense stepped up, was able to force the Chargers a turnover on downs. Ravens got the ball back. Zay Flowers ended up putting that game away. But a questionable decision by John Harbaugh to challenge a play that was pretty decisively against him. And it seemed like at that point, it was pretty clear that it was a backwards pass. But instead, the Ravens lose the challenge, doesn't come back to bite them. However, questionable. One more thing, and I do want to get your comments and questions as I am live on YouTube to break down this Ravens 20-10 win over the Chargers. I discussed the questionable non-challenge of a couple close spots, but the decision at the end of the game, Ravens are up by 3, 13-10, to bring out Justin Tucker on a 4th and 1 from about the 26-yard line. And instead of going for it and trying to pick up the first down, there's about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. John Harbaugh sends out the most accurate kicker in NFL history, who has been perfect from inside 50 yards this season, 20 for 20 at that point in the game. Tucker misses from 44 yards wide left, opens the door wide for the Chargers to come back and at least tie this game and potentially go ahead in the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds. If it's 4th down and 1, we saw already that the Ravens failed to pick up 4th down and inches with a direct snap from Gus Edwards. We haven't seen too many opportunities from this Ravens offense to go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and short opportunities. This seemed like a great opportunity for the Ravens to run one of Todd Monken's deep plays from his deep playbook. And yet they brought out Justin Tucker to try a 44-yarder. I know Justin Tucker generally is money. Over the course of his career, he has been absolutely money. And this year, he's been money from inside 50. But even if he makes that kick, you go up 16-10 at that point. A touchdown and an extra point by the Chargers gives them the lead and potentially wins the game for LA. So if the Ravens had gone for it on 4th, picked up the first down, they would have put the Chargers defense on its heels. They would have been very close to the red zone at that point, and they would have forced the Chargers to take 3 timeouts before either the Ravens attempt another short kick, a shorter kick from a shorter distance, or they could have put it in the end zone, gone up by 2 scores, and essentially ended the game at that point. So questionable decision, and I want to hear from people as to whether they agreed with John Harbaugh's decision to bring out Justin Tucker on 4th down and 1 with 3.5 minutes left. Justin Tucker misses the kick. Of course, it looks bad in hindsight. Had he made the kick and the Ravens defense again comes up, probably wouldn't be talking as much about this. However, it seemed like a questionable call at the time, and I think it's worth a fair amount of scrutiny as well. So some questionable coaching decisions in this game. The Ravens allowed the Chargers to come back in this game and make it a game. And I do want to give a lot of credit to the defense, but this should have been a walk away game for the Ravens. This should have been a decisive victory by the Ravens over the Chargers. And instead they allowed the Chargers to come back into this game and have an opportunity to tie or go ahead in the final few minutes of this game. And I think we've seen that come back and hurt the Ravens before. The quote unquote 4th quarter Ravens have shown up at the worst times, seemingly. We saw it happen the first time of this season. We saw it happen against Indianapolis in the rain at home. They lose in overtime to Gardner Minshew. You think it's a fluke. It happens again when in Pittsburgh, an ill-advised fade to the corner of the end zone ends up in an interception. Kenny Pickett ends up throwing a touchdown over Marlon Humphrey's head to George Pickens, and the Steelers pull off an improbable 17-10 win over the Ravens. Okay, 2 is a coincidence. 3 is a trend. And 3 happened against the Cleveland Browns at home in a game where Deshaun Watson was stumbling and bumbling and hobbling around, and the offense failed to put the game away. The defense crumbled down the stretch, and we saw 3 Ravens 4th quarter leads evaporate. That's where the Ravens' 3 losses have come. They haven't been solidly outplayed for 60 minutes all season. It's only been fourth quarter leads that they have surrendered. It looked like that was heading down the same path in this game against the Chargers. But the Chargers are 4-7 for a reason. Brandon Staley's seat is exceedingly warm for a reason. They are not a very good team. This is not a very good defense. A better team probably would have taken advantage of the Ravens' miscues at the end of this game, probably would have beaten the Ravens. Instead, the Ravens escape with a 20-10 victory. They head into the bye. They have an opportunity to refresh before they have a tough 5 remaining games of the season as they look to hold on to the number 1 seed in the AFC. After the bye, they face the Rams at home, on the road against the Jaguars, on the road against the Niners, at home against Miami, and at home against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, who won again today to move to 7-4, by the way, and stay just a couple games back of the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens have a chance now to recoup, to regroup, get fully healthy as they head into the final 5 games of this season. And whatever seems to be ailing this team in the fourth quarter, they have to get it figured out because those final 5 opponents will not be easy and will take advantage of the Ravens' miscues in the fourth quarter. And once they get to the playoffs, the Ravens will have an awfully tough time putting teams away in the fourth quarter, and they will need to be a much different team in the final 15 minutes. However, they come away with a win today. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in to this Banner Ravens live chat. And I will have plenty more along with Jonas Schaefer as we wrap this thing up on the Banner Ravens podcast, which you can listen to anywhere that you get your podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. Please rate, review, subscribe. Please give this video a thumbs up as well if you have the opportunity, because it is good for the formula. That is what they say. And subscribe to the Baltimore Banner on YouTube channel, and subscribe to the Banner as well. TheBaltimoreBanner.com, $1 for 6 months. My Twitter handle is at Paul Mancano, and at All Banner Sports is where you can see all of our coverage. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and please listen to the Banner Ravens podcast. We'll have a fresh episode for you. Ravens come away with the victory 20-10.